welcome to 123 Go. I'm Jay, and I'm back with another quick video. Just wanted to talk about a few things that were on my mind today regarding the Ryker. So I wanted to talk about how the Ryker handles in the rain, and a couple of things that I learned, because I've seen a lot of content, I've seen a lot of videos, a ton of rides, and I think they're all great and wonderful, and I don't think I've seen anybody talk about riding in the rain in the Ryker. So a couple of quick thoughts, few impressions that I had, as well as a lesson or two that I might have learned. First thing I'm going to say is this. The rain that I experienced, I've been on the highway, I've been on the interstate twice when I caught rain, I've been on a couple of back roads when I caught rain, and it didn't feel, at no time did I feel like the bike or the Ryker was gonna be unsafe. I felt stable, I felt balanced, I did not feel any wheel slippage, I did not feel like I was hydroplaning, so that's the first thing I wanna mention. Now, I will say this, that was just due to the rain, the conditions. It was not raining hard. It was kind of a light rain. It wasn't anything too crazy. So there wasn't a lot of pooling up of the water. And I slowed for conditions. So I did back off a lot on the throttle. So for example, on one ride, the speed limit was 55. I ran in the rain. I dialed it back to about 40, 45. And until I felt like I had good control, and until I noticed that it wasn't actually raining anymore, and I noticed that the water wasn't pooling, then I kicked it up a notch to about maybe 45, 50, but I never went back to 55 miles an hour once the road got wet. So just wanted to put that in perspective to kind of give you an idea. If I had to rate the rain conditions I've driven in, the back road was probably, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was probably about a 2. And then when I got caught on the interstate, as far as the amount of rain that was coming down, I was probably somewhere around a 4 or 5. So it wasn't pouring down, but it was definitely hitting. So a couple of things. The windscreen, the windshield, whatever you want to call it, this thing was a game changer, okay? So when I was riding, first thing I want to mention is that when you're moving horizontally through the rain, you're not going to get soaked like you think you would. And a lot of that has to do with the wind being deflected off of you and the fact that you're moving horizontally or perpendicular to the rain dropping down. So I wasn't in a crosswind or anything like that. But what happened was the windscreen really pushed a lot of the rain away from my body as I was moving through the rain. And to the point where if I tucked in just a little bit, not much, I was actually able to keep water off of my visor on my helmet, which was really good because that meant that I had maximized my visibility based on the conditions, especially without having a windshield wiper. The other thing that also happened was, because I don't have a windshield wiper, I was kind of nervous. I was like, how is this going to work? Because I saw the rain coming and I had to make a choice. Like, do I continue to drive? Do I get off the road? What do I do? And I said, well, let me drive into it, see what it's doing. And then if I feel like I can't, if I need to stop, then I'll stop. As I was cutting through the wind or going down the road, the water did not sit. It just continued to get pushed off the windshield. So, and it went past my body. When I did start to accumulate droplets on my visor, the first time it happened, I took my hand and wiped. And I was like, but yeah, now I'm taking my hand off the handlebars while I'm doing, 60 miles an hour on a highway that's listed at 70 miles per hour. So it's interstate highway, interstate 85. So I had the presence of mind the second time. I was like, instead of taking my hand off the bars, why don't I just do what my windshield is doing? So I just poked my head out around from the windscreen long enough for the wind to blow any droplets off of my face mask, off of my visor, and I just ducked back behind and kept it pushing. So that was the first thing that I'd say. If you're on the fence about getting a windscreen and you kind of want to be prepared for driving in, I'm not going to say all conditions, but in conditions that might change when you're on the road, because you never know. You might be on a back road and something's closed. Now you got to get on the interstate. You got to do a faster speed, or you turn a corner and you didn't realize that you were going from a 45 mile per hour back road to a 55 mile per hour road. Things change when you've got a windscreen up and you can kind of deflect the wind and everything else. So I definitely encourage you to get one. I went with the larger one. I think this is the Adventure windshield, if I'm not mistaken. I decided I didn't want the little small one. I wanted a bigger one, and I'm glad I did this. It made a world of difference, and it gave me greater visibility at a time where it could have easily been compromised. To put in perspective, my visibility that day when I got caught on the interstate, I could see a mile ahead of me easy. A mile and a half on a straightaway, no problem. There wasn't any mist really kicking up. I mean, I did have mist from vehicles, but it wasn't anything like no fog or anything like that. Or you know how you get the mist on the ground that kind of just raises up some. There was none of that for me. So it was clear for the most part. The pavement was just wet. So let's talk about the pavement. The first thought that I had was, oh man, my feet are going to be soaked. I was wearing my jacket, which is a waterproof jacket, and I was wearing just some regular denim jeans, and I had on some Jordan 1s. They were perforated in the toe, so I was concerned, like, oh man, I'm about to soak my J's up. Like, this ain't cool. Well, I don't know how they designed this front fender accent, but when I at one point I kind of glanced down to see how the water was coming up, and it really was not splashing up. The water was actually kind of being jetted directly behind the bike, and I think it's because of these little wings they have that kind of sit on the back of the fender here, and as a result of that, it wasn't spraying water up. And the rear, it's got a full fender across the tire on the 22 Ryker Sport. I don't know if the Rally has a full fender back here or not over the rear tire, but I didn't get any. My butt wasn't wet when I got off the Ryker. Like, my whole seat was actually dry, to be honest with you. Even my passenger seat was kind of dry. I think it's because my body was either absorbing whatever water was hitting it and it wasn't reaching the back seat. I don't know. But the aerodynamics and the way that these things are molded and contoured, the water was not kicking up. Now, I will say this, don't drive through a puddle. I have hit a puddle and foot got soaked, okay? So that was standing water puddle that I hit, and I was not at a highway speed when I hit it. So that water splashed up, caught my foot. But on the highway, surprisingly enough, by the time I got home and got my shoes off, I expected my sock to be soaked, and it was just barely damp. Like, it was damp to the touch, but it was not soaked. And my feet were not wet at all, like, for the most part. So, and the shoe was a little damp because of the perforations. If I had a shoe that was not perforated, I really don't think that my sock would have been perfectly fine. So, and the shoe itself would not have been soaked or waterlogged. So I just want to mention that. As far as the handling, I did feel like the bike kind of corrected a few times with the traction control. I think I was riding in eco mode at the time, so traction control was fully engaged. I do wonder how it would have handled had it been in standard or sport mode. So I'm just gonna say, based on how I felt the bike's dynamics change when I've been in sport mode, I would not encourage you to ride in the rain in sport mode, just because of the understeer and the way it wants to shimmy a little bit. That would scare me. So I just want to caution you on that. If you see rain coming, or you know you're about to drive into it, reach up and hit that button. Go ahead and get yourself into eco or maybe standard. I'm not sure. But I was in eco mode because I was on the highway at a cruising speed. So other than that, I felt mostly dry. My pants were actually not as damp as I expected them to be. Like, they were, it was no different than if I would have run out of a grocery store, got caught in the rain, and had to jet to the car real quick. I was not drenched when I got off the bike. Like, I felt like I could have walked in my house and sat on the couch and nobody would have complained about my wet clothes on the couch. So that's what my experience was like. Know your limits. I've talked about this in a previous video. Don't push yourself or the Ryker if you're not capable or if you're not there yet. And even if you think you are, err on the side of caution, okay? So, I'm sure that these bikes can be compromised as far as their stability is concerned. Just don't do it. Know when to dial it back. So, just continue to be safe, be sharp, and just continue to enjoy everything you're doing with your Ryker.